So I woke up one morning and I went to the studio, and before my appointment, I drew them on and I was like, bim, 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 and hand poked them myself.
Hi and welcome back to another episode of Face Tattoo Talks, a series in which I interview interesting people with face tattoos. If you don't know me, my name is Joachim Stijls and I've been photographing people with face tattoos for the past 5 years. You can check out some of my work on my Instagram. For this 5th episode of Face Tattoo Talks, I decided I wanted to interview Spanish artist and tattooer Monki Diamond. I first met Monki after sending back and forth some DMs because I really wanted to photograph her and get tattooed by her as well. And not long after we managed to do both. I ended up making some very nice photos of her right after she tattooed my shin. Monki recently returned to Belgium to tattoo at the True Love convention and to guest at a souvenir tattoo parlor. So I asked her to meet up again, and this time to do a video interview, which you will be able to see when I wrap up my intro. As always, if you like this type of video interviews, feel free to like it, to share it with your friends who might also be interested in it. And if you want to stay updated on future video interviews, please subscribe and turn on your notifications to stay up to date. All of these things really help my channel as they enable me to reach a larger amount of people. So much for the intro. I really hope you like my interview with Monki Diamond, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.
My name is Monki Diamond. I'm a 33-year-old Spanish artist and also a tattooer. So I started tattooing 11 years ago in Scotland, in Edinburgh. And at the start, I was very fascinated by traditional tattooing and the history of it. And I did color work and black traditional, but I always focused on the timeless black. And over time, traveling, life, and some personal growth, I started switching a little bit into ornamental style and more tribal related tattoos, and also a lot of freehand and floral. So I started in Edinburgh. I was very young when I started tattooing. I always wanted to do it, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a very successful career, because not many people was encouraging me or like really pushing me to do it. So it was a bit of a fight at the start. But then I became quite busy in Scotland and decided the weather was getting to me, a lot of grey skies. So I decided to drop everything and go traveling. And I went all the way to Australia. And I was tattooing on the east coast of Australia, and I couldn't get my visa over there because obviously being Spanish wasn't easy. And then I decided to move to Canada after that. And I was living in Toronto and Montreal for almost 5-6 years of my life before I came back to Europe.
And now in Europe you're traveling, but up until now you've been based in Vienna.
Yeah, well, at first I came back to Spain because I missed home so much. I set up a private studio there. And after a year home, I decided to try something new again, like always, looking for that just different approach, different culture to tattooing. So I decided to go to Vienna and using Vienna as a base, but every month I travel to a different city in Europe. And I've been doing that for the past 3 years non-stop. So it's been like a lot of staying and packing, staying and packing. Yeah, like my first job ever, my English was so bad, I couldn't even get like a job because I couldn't hold a conversation. So my first job when I was 18 years old, it was in a cookies factory, night shift, just picking and packing. And after that, I did a lot of bar jobs. I was working in different bars, restaurants, and then cocktail bars. And then a lot of people with tattoos were coming in to have their beers and their shots. And I was like, oh, I really like this. And then I started getting tattooed myself. And that's how I kind of became more familiar with the tattoo industry in the world. It was tough. It was very tough back then. I can't imagine now. But back then, they would not give you much room. They would not share with you much of the knowledge that the people had. So first, I started getting tattooed a lot and just by watching and trying to pick out things like how they do the setup, how they use their machines, what needles, what these, what that. And then after I start collecting a few tattoos, I've been drawing for a long time before that as well, because I've been drawing since I was a kid. And I was always interested, and I knew for sure I wanted to do it. I was like in that point of my life that I was like 100%, no matter how difficult this is, I'm gonna do it. And I started putting a portfolio together with a bunch of drawings. And then I was like, okay, the portfolio needs to have also like photos of tattoos that I've done. So I started to tattoo at home, in my living room or in my bed or whatever I could. I would go to people's houses, in parties. Like I had to do anything I had to do. I was like, I'll do it just to be able to do a tattoo on someone. And I bought my first machine. I was like 2012, I think, or 2013. I bought my first tattoo machines from a guy in Poland. Because even then it was difficult for me to like, what machine and like what supply, and then I found these guys. I was like, okay. And finally I had my portfolio, I had my machine, and I had like 2 or 3 tattoos that I've done. And the lines were okay. I didn't know how to do shading back then. And a friend of mine, he opened up a studio in Edinburgh, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ask him. Because I asked multiple people, but they all refused me. Oh, you're a girl, or you're too young, you're not good enough, or we don't have time. We don't have time for this. But if you want a tattoo, you know? And I used to go to those studios, get tattooed a lot, but they wouldn't give me a chance. So then my friend opened up the door of his studio for me, and I did a piercing apprenticeship and a tattoo apprenticeship. I had to do both. And I also had to like open the shop and clean the floors and bring coffee for everybody and do the autoclave and all this stuff. After coming back from Canada back into Europe, I always, when I try to inspire myself, I always go back in time and trying to find the roots, right? That's why when I did traditional, I was looking at the old stuff, but then making it my own. And then I knew I wanted to do something a little bit more tribal and ornamental. So I started going back into my books and I started looking at different styles and how they would approach and what tribes in what parts of the world. And then basically I started looking at the north of Africa, India, Asia, some parts of like mid-Africa as well, and Central America and South America. And then I realized that these tribes, they all have certain patterns. And most of them, they are like drawn like very bold, very rough. Some of them, they have meaning, some of them no. So then I started looking into that to kind of like bring my own modern patterns into the modern world. And then I started learning a lot as well about how in these tribes, females tend to tattoo females all the time. And they were like right before marriage or after marriage, or like in these points of their life where they become older or like wiser and they mark certain parts of their body. So that was how I wanted to approach my work. And that's kind of the inspiration behind. There is a tribe in India called the Baiga tribe. They do like these huge, like mega bold patterns on their arms, on their necks. And the same with the north of Morocco. I would say India and Morocco are my both main points of inspiration at the moment for what I'm doing now. I don't know what I'll be doing in 2 years, so. God knows.
Worries for later.
Ooh, funny tattoos. I have a few. I have this like, it's like a smoking, I call it like a smoking poop. It's supposed to be a smoking worm. It's based on a very, very old flash. My friend Josh did it. He's now an amazing tattooer, but I made him tattoo me when he was starting his apprenticeship. And I remember him starting it and I was super excited. And as soon as he finished it, I looked in the mirror and I was like, why do I have a poop? But I love him very much. I don't think I'll ever cover that. And then I have a few others on my legs. They're very, just dumb, just silly.
Can you tell me about the bitch switch?
Yeah, that was like, I told like one of my ex-boyfriends at the time, I was like, okay, babe, like you can do something on me, like whatever you want to do, feel free. And I thought he was gonna do something cute or like something funny or just a small doodle thing. And he started tattooing me and I see a bee and an eye and a T. And I was like, no, are you kidding? And he did like a bitch switch on my leg. And he left it on. And I was like, oh my God. What others do I have? I have a lot of bad tattoos from my years of not giving a fuck. Yeah. Most recent, I think it was the Jobstoppers. These were done in Barcelona by Fabrice, and he's a very good artist. I never thought I was going to get them both at the same time because I was a little bit like, oh, this is going to hurt a lot. But then I pushed through it. These ones, and I think my ribs from Jelly, like all these, they were also the last ones I got done. My eyebrows by Indie. Those are the most recent ones. The first one on my face was actually the first ever tattooed on my face were these two little dots. And I did them myself. I was going through a hard period mentally where now looking back, I think I was going through a depressive episode. I was living in Toronto at the time. And it was a self-reminder. I was like, always keep your eyes open and see reality for what it is, not for what you want to see. Because I was in a toxic relationship and I wasn't aware of it. So I woke up one morning and I went to the studio, and before my appointment, I drew them on and I was like, bim, 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 and hand poked on myself. But they're so little, like not many people notice them. And then I had these, this is the star? Yeah. And I had the star done by a really cool artist as well. Their name is Rat. That was in Toronto at the time. At this time, I was tattooing illegally. I had no paperwork. And I remember I was like, you're doing this of me, you know, to my friend. And they were mega nervous. But these didn't change anything. I think that was kind of cute and whatnot. Then I had these in the Montreal convention by Evan, another friend. And eventually I went for my forehead and my eyebrows. And I think this is the most intense for people. Even though these are more visible sometimes, I think people are more used to seeing the little things on the sides now. It's a lot more common, not like back a few years ago where it was like, oh my God, are you gonna get your face? But the forehead and the eyebrows, I think they really make a difference because a lot of people comment on them. A lot of people. The forehead was like medium woodblock tattoo. She brings the woodblocks from India and then tattoos them hand poked. And that was in my hometown, which it was really cool to connect with another female artist that does this type of ornamental. And we both come from the same city. So in that sense, it was like beautiful to connect there, both of our roots, both tattooers, and get tattooed by her was very special for me. And the eyebrows by Indy, because he also did my eyelids. So I knew I wanted him, like he's very, very good with hand poked, and I knew. Meaning, not really. For me, it's not meaning. I looked at the tribes that I get inspired from, and most of them, they also don't have meaning. They wear tattoos as jewelry. They can't afford gold or silver, so women tend to get these ornaments as, you know, as jewelry. So I wanted to have something in the same placement as the Berber woman in the forehead. And the eyebrows is a little bit more tribal, but also a touch of 90s. And I drew them on in my face for, I think, like a few weeks. I went home and then I drew them on. And I just looked at myself at home with these on until I was like, okay. Because I knew it was going to be a little bit more gnarly to have eyebrow. Yeah, I love them. I love them, yeah. But I had a lot of people asking, like why your eyebrows?
Negatively? Or?
In a way, yeah. I think a lot of people, they just don't like people touching their faces with tattoos. I don't know, it's because they want to do it and they're like, maybe they can't. So they're like, why are you doing it then, you know? But a lot of people get frustrated by face tattoos.
Because they didn't understand.
No. And or they have these, like, you have to be like mega cover to earn a face tattoo, which obviously I'm not saying like to a young kid with no tattoos, okay, go get your face. Like, think about it first, you know? But at the end of the day, I love the freedom that brings to people to be able to not only the face, but anywhere in their body to make that choice. And I think that's very powerful. So when I see people making them, in a way, I'm like, you can live with it, you choose it, then go ahead, you know? Actually, yeah, I think in a few days.
2 years and a few days. Can you tell me how it transformed your life and what brought you to the point of this transformation?
To the sober life. I think like as kids we get really influenced by our environment and how do we have to behave and how are we social and how we interact with each other. And I was always like, you know, loving music, loving parties and socializing and working in bars. So I just thought it was normal, like everybody drank, you know? And obviously you start drinking, you start partying, you start trying things. And it's not like I had a heavy addiction or anything, but it definitely didn't make me feel good. My hangover was getting worse, my energy levels were going down, depression was kicking in. And it got to a point that I was like, you know, you're 20 something or reaching 30. And I woke up one morning and it was very much like a snap out of it. And I think my trip in India really made a difference. Because once you take time off from your regular life, and then I took time off and I was really like sober, present, removing all this like toxic environment around me, then I realized how good I felt. And I was like, why would I go back to that? Just because it is programmed for me to go on a Friday night and go drink, or like on a Saturday night, just because all my friends are doing it, do I have to? No, you don't have to. And eventually I woke up one morning and I was like, I think that's it, I'm done. And I quit, and it was tough.
You're doing very well.
And the first few months were the worst.
Having to say no to friends.
Not only saying no to friends, it's like readjusting your whole life, you know, because you don't realize how much time you can spend in a bar until you're not drinking, and then you're like, why am I sitting here for 6 hours straight? There's nothing I would do for 6 hours, not even my favorite activity. Then why would I intoxicate myself for 6 hours? And I think also like in general, like I always loved like psychology, philosophy, and then, you know, like yoga philosophy as well. And starting to read about how can you improve your life, depending on your own choices, depending on the way you live your life. And it was very awakening, you know, like being able to read all this book, finding all this information, and then being like, okay, I know all this information, but am I not gonna do anything with it? You know, because one thing is like reading it, and then you know by the book, but then you have to put it in practice. And then once I started putting it in practice and I saw the benefits, then I was like, okay, this is like ridiculous. If I go back, then it would be ridiculous. Like I would just like harming myself.
Once you've seen what's possible, it's hard to...
And I'm past that point, you know, like I don't have that relationship with myself that I desire to like punish myself anymore, or like, oh, I want to get completely trashed, or like I want to forget. Like I don't need to, you know. If anything traumatic happens, I don't go for alcohol. I go for my own company, my own comfort, to kind of like come back to that home, you know, instead of trying to fix it by forgetting about it. You see a lot of like mental health issues in the tattoo industry altogether, from clients to tattooers, but I think in society in general, same the effect the social media has on young people these days, and like even my clients, you know. And I think it's, yeah, and more like in a way just to like to give people like space to speak up. I listen to a lot in my tattoo sessions to my clients and things that has happened to them, and then I share my story with them. So in a way we learn from each other and we build that connection. And I think it's important to make room for that as well. Like tattoos are mega fun and it's haha hee hee whatnot, but also if someone makes a comment, if something is brought up, like make this space for it. You know, that little interaction can change a lot, someone's life or someone's day. And I think the same for me, like the times where I felt like mega low. Before, like I tend to like very close up and just like, you know, focus on my painting, focus on my creativity and focus, but sometimes you really need to talk to someone about it. And I think it's important to just create those spaces. And if these kids, that they're maybe not feeling well, the only place they tend to go is like the tattoo shop, maybe that question should be asked and you have to make a space for that conversation to happen, you know? No, or during even, or after, or hey, and how you doing, and checking on each other, and then they feel the hug of the community, you know? So people don't feel so like lonely and like alienated in their own heads. Of course, if you're serving a coffee, you're not gonna ask for like a whole life history of someone. But if you are tattooing the same client for 3 years and this person is coming back and is telling you they bought new Nikes and they bought these or they're going there, are you not gonna ask them, but how are you feeling? It's not that difficult, you know? And it can bring someone very close to you very quickly just by giving a little bit of a space to like truly care about each other. And this is what I mean, like if we are a community, then we should really just make a little bit of a space for this instead of being like, well, it's not my responsibility. It's no one's responsibility, but it's everyone's responsibility at the same time. Like if we were to check on each other, even just as friends, acquaintances, or anything like that, I think people would feel a little bit less lonely.
Because it's a small effort, but
this is what I've learned, yeah. Like, I've tattooed a lot of young people with like self-harm scars on arms, on legs. And it's hard, you know? Or like you get that message where it's like, oh, your client is not here anymore, you know? Overdose, committed suicide, or our friends or people that we know. And I think it should be like spoken about.
For sure. Thank you, Monki, for your time. For taking the time to sit down with me and for doing this.
Never again.
Maybe as a last 2 seconds, introduce the person or
the person, Paco. Oh, introduce the dead creature.
the little petal.
Darling. So this is Paco, my guardian angel. I got him in Spain. He's also an emotional support dog. Registered. Yeah. I talked to my therapist and I was like, I can't live without him. So we did his paperwork. And he's been traveling with me. He's 5 and he's been traveling with me for the past 5 years non-stop. Everywhere. He really keeps me sane.